your brother goes to Fordham to play basketball. Lots of people show up at the Rose Hill Gym to watch him play. People go to Jack Coffey Field to watch the football team play. Who comprised your cheering section?
No one.
It's all about self-motivation.
Absolutely. I remember there was this one guy who was working at the cafeteria. What was his name? Simon, I think. Was his name Simon? I think his name was Simon. And he used to come to the track meets, and that was a delight. He was a very wonderful human being that I still remember. But basically there was no one. I mean, who goes to a track event? Mm. No one. I mean, I think one of the issues was that the Fordham track itself, at least the indoor track, doesn't have stands where people can actually go. And so the indoor track and field competitions that took place, they usually took place at the Armory, which was, I don't know, I remember maybe like half an hour drive from Rose Hill campus. So people really had to want to go there to see you, to watch you. And I think the problem and the challenge that track and field has is that, once you compete, you have multiple events that you do as an athlete, and it's usually spread out throughout the whole day. It's not like a game where you go to like a basketball game that, you're probably there for like an hour and a half and then everything is done, So I think that's probably challenging for a lot of track and field athletes. So the motivation was, I was my own motivation. I had this intrinsic motivation that made me successful. And I think that's what a lot of athletes need to understand. You cannot rely on other people to be there to push you to a certain extent. If you want to be successful, it's going to have to come within yourself. And that's what I focused on.
Were there, though, any other athletes inspiring you in the various events?
In track and field, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of other track and field athletes from other schools that I really admired. There was this one girl from Arizona State University. Her name was Jacqueline Johnson. She actually won the pentathlon, the indoor pentathlon in 2007 at the NCAAs. And she was my absolute hero. And yeah, I was following her along, throughout the year and see what she did. And yeah, so that was probably my motivation. She was my motivation.
Talk about the weather. Talk about being outdoors. Give us a horror story about weather.
Oh,
did you run in the rain? Did you have just crazy weather that, well, we got to go out there?
Oh yeah, I remember. Actually, it wasn't a workout, but it was a track meet that we had in Boston. And, everyone told me, oh, Boston is really cold. It's something different like New York. You won't even notice, it's something totally different. So everyone told me, well, you're from Germany. It's cold in Germany. And I was always thinking, like, why does everyone think it's cold in Germany? It must have been like the World War II movies that everyone is still having in their heads. I don't know what it is, but I mean,
those were the special effects.
I don't know. I mean, we had 100 degrees this summer. It was terrible. So yeah, it was a track meet actually in Boston, and it was so cold. It was an indoor event, but you go outside to warm up, and I feel like you have to throw on a couple of layers of clothing to actually prepare for your workout. So that was quite challenging, and also afterwards, because usually you go out for dinner with the team and you walk around in the cold, and I don't think I have ever experienced so much cold as I did experience in Boston. It was terrible.
You spoke about the 2007 NCAA Indoor Track and Field Championships and what an important moment that was for you. That was held at the University of Arkansas. You finished fourth in the pentathlon, the highest ever finish for a Fordham woman at the NCAA Championships. What record? This is like saying, what's your favorite child? Oh, but what record are you most proud of?
The high jump. I'm absolutely, the high jump has always been kind of like a hate love in my life. Sometimes I hated it so much because I couldn't get any further. And then sometimes I felt very thankful that, high jump was really my event. And I feel like the combination of Tom Dewey and Marissa Galloway, and also Coach Galenka at the time, it was a great constellation of us four that really kind of like got the best out of me. And so high jump was always very special. I felt like throughout my career, I started high jump when I was 13. It was my first event that I started. So obviously I had a very intense connection with that event. All the other events, I mean, they were kind of just there, but that was probably the most, yeah, that was my proudest moment in the records.
Let's talk a little bit about your Fordham experience. Before you came here as a student in August of 2004, had you ever been to New York?
No, I had no idea. I mean, I knew New York from like TV series and movies and stuff, but I have never, no, I don't think I've been to New York prior to that.
And do you remember your first visit to the Rose Hill campus?
Oh, yes. I actually came with my parents. I was super tired because obviously we had a long flight. We flew from Frankfurt, Germany to New York, and that's like a 7-hour flight. All I wanted was to sleep. And then I remember I got to campus. I think we stayed in a hotel a night before. Then the next day was the first day where, all of the freshmen showed up and moved into their dorms and stuff. And I really thought I was in a whole different world. This whole campus, I thought it was so beautiful. So, I mean, the grass was so green, the plants were all nice. I didn't see something like that in Europe really, unless you go to like a park. And German universities they don't really have like a campus, they're like in the middle of the city. And then you have like the supermarket in between, and then you have, different stores in between. You don't really have like campus life in Germany. So I was really, I don't know, I was just overwhelmed with everything.
And you made mention earlier to the difficulty of having to transition to an entirely different culture with a different language.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, yes, that challenge of going somewhere, a place that I didn't really know, because I never lived in the United States before. But then on the other hand, I knew, okay, I have the American passport, I have an American father. And then I was so mad because he really didn't tell me a whole lot about the United States. And then I didn't really learn English that well. So it was kind of like, okay, there's so much new that I need to grasp, and then so much more of my identity that I actually got to know. So I was out, my head was just spinning around. It was very challenging the first year.
What school were you in, and what was your major?
I was at Rose Hill campus, FCRH. I think that's what you call it. I was a major in communications and media studies.
What was your interest there?
Oh, I always wanted to be a TV host, actually, even back then. And I knew that I wasn't probably going to make that when, if I stayed in the United States, because I always felt like my English wasn't good enough, or I wasn't feeling comfortable speaking. And, when it comes to humor, if a language is not your first language, humor is the first thing that's getting lost. So I always knew, oh, maybe that's not going to be possible for me in the United States. So I went back to Germany, and I started working as a journalist, and I, worked for TV stations and radio stations and stuff. So yeah, that's where the career went.
Favorite subject at Fordham was what?
Oh, communications for sure. Anything creative. I hated math. I hated history. Anything that, and that was something that I probably disliked the most, because German schools prepare you to go to university starting with your major directly. So all of the how do you call it? I think you call it core classes you take at Fordham, like your freshman and sophomore year, that were mandatory. Those were the classes that we already finished in high school in Germany. So I had to double and retake those classes, and I felt like it was haunting me and I couldn't get out of it. So my goal was basically to start my major right away, which was the case in Europe, everywhere in Europe, basically. And the American system is just so different. So the first 2 years were probably the most challenging because I had to do history and math and religion and all that stuff that I had already done.
Favorite building on campus, which one?
Probably, oh, you're getting me. I'm forgetting those names. That's terrible. The favorite building was probably the building where the track center was down in the basement, because that's where I spent most of my time. What's the name again?
The Lombardi Center?
Lombardi Center. That was
Yeah.
probably my favorite because I spent most of my time there. You know, I was living in North my first year, my freshman year, and then I moved into Millennium. I don't know if it's still called that way, that name. Starting my sophomore year into my senior year. And but Lombardi Center was probably had the most impact because that's where everything happened that was most important to me. I had my track down there. The cafeteria was there because I was hanging out there 24/7, you know, trying to get good food to be a good athlete. The athletic office that made everything possible for me. You know, I had a great experience with Marion Riley at the time. She was very understanding and helpful when I had a couple of issues that I wanted to talk about with a lady. And yeah, that was, yeah. And the basketball games, everything that considered, you know, my brother. So that was probably my favorite.
You had such a demanding life as an athlete, but were you able to hang out at all with friends and either on campus or off campus? Did you have any special places?
Not really. I probably could have had the chance to do so. I mean, the track team was always kind of wild. I mean, I remember those Tuesday nights where everyone went out to some kind of bars and a lot of, you know, kids were just going crazy. And I felt like my advantage at that time was that I was just so much older than everyone else. You know, I had freshmen in the dorms that were, you know, 17 and I was almost 23. So my focus was really to become successful and, you know, to make the best out of my time, and also the opportunity that I was given by Fordham University. So I really decided for most of the time not to go out and, you know, do all wild and crazy things. I decided to go to bed early, to read my books, to do my homework, to catch up on my English deficit, really. And if I did have time, I loved spending time with athletes that were older, my brother, his teammates, if they did have time, and just had great conversations. And I loved cooking. That's what I did with a lot of students who were living off campus who had kitchens where we could actually do that.
So there was not much of an ingestion of cafeteria food in your time at Fordham?
Well, yeah, I mean, for most of my time, I was hanging out in the cafeteria, and I must say, it wasn't as bad as so many people always complain about. I had a great time in the cafeterias because it always meant that I was able to talk to other people who were not on some kind of sports team, because that's where you were able to meet them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no complaints about the cafeteria. It was great.
Tell us about graduation day.
You know, sadly, I don't have a lot of memories about that day. I just remember everything just took forever until it was my time to actually walk on stage. And it was probably also, a time where I really wanted to go home. I just missed home. I missed
Mm.
my friends, and I knew that, things were coming to an end. And I did have a job offer right after college, but to me, at the time, the United States wasn't really an option for me. So, with all of this in my head, I wasn't really able to enjoy that day a lot. I was very proud that I finished everything, and I reviewed on what my achievements were. And the one thing that I also remember was that I knew that my track and field career would probably come to an end after leaving Fordham, because I knew that I didn't have the coaching, I didn't have the facilities when I came back to Germany, and that's exactly what happened. And I knew that at that day, because I knew I was going to leave the next day, and actually wanted to continue my career. And I wanted to stay at Fordham to do my master's, but there was a bunch of reasons why that didn't work out. So I was kind of sad on that day that I had to leave.
But I would imagine you weren't sad on the day in 2013 when you were inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. What do you remember about that day?
I felt like I was very welcomed and very appreciated. I had a bunch of great stories. At the time, I came there with my parents and my husband, my now husband. I wasn't married to him then. I think we dated only for about 3 months or 4, and then I told him, I'm like, listen, this is my past. If you want to be part of my future, might as well come along. So I took him along. And it was great to see the coaches again. It was great to see the facilities. It was a wonderful day. Everything was organized very nicely. There was great stories that were, being told amongst other athletes who were also inducted from other sports. And there was also a bunch of track and field colleagues that actually came to celebrate with me. So that was very nice.
And you left Fordham, you returned to Germany, you worked as a model and as a singer. On those occasions when you've come back to Fordham, what comes to mind? What memories flow?
The team bonding, a great team experience, and my wonderful connection that I had with Coach Dewey and with all of the coaches, basically. But Coach Dewey was probably one of my favorite. Also, Marissa Galloway, she was an assistant coach. I felt like we were working together so well. And those are probably the best memories that I had, the people that I met, the conversations that I had, and also a lot of like cultural differences that made me smile. Little things, like daily things. Sometimes, I walked into the cafeteria and I remember where I sat, little things like that. Not necessarily something super important, but you do have a lot of memories with certain spots in the school, and that was very beautiful to experience.
I can't wait for your little ones to grow up, for you to tell them, this has been my life.
I don't think they realize.
When they start asking questions and they see and recognize all of those medals and trophies that you have, I can't imagine what that's going to be like for you.
Yeah, I mean, they actually found a whole box of like trophies and medals in the attic the other day, and they were asking about it, and they have no idea, because to them, I'm the singer and actor. To them, they don't know that I was an athlete. I mean, this is my life now, and they get super excited when they call Alexa and say, Alexa, play music from my mom. And then they call my name, and then Alexa plays music. It's on Amazon, so it's crazy. To them, I'm the stage performer. And I don't think they understand what my previous life was all about, but they're into sports. They're actually playing tennis and playing basketball also. So I think, it's not going to take very long for them to understand what their mom did.
I once did an interview with a baseball player named Otis Nixon, who could run like the wind. and his mother could run like the wind. And growing up in Georgia, they would run down the block. They would have races, and she would beat him every single time. But then came the day when Otis beat Mom and the races ended. And I'm wondering if one day that's going to happen to you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not happening yet,
No.
but for sure, it's gonna happen. They're still too young, but to be honest, you know, since they don't consider or they don't see me playing sports every day. I mean, I don't go to the gym. I don't go for a run. You know, I'm not that athletic actually anymore. So to them, I'm not an athletic mom. But every time we do races, you know, on the streets, or I play tennis with my son, and then they realize, oh, why are you so fast? Why can you play tennis? Why can you skate? Why can you swim? How do you do all of these things? You know, they start to realize that Mom was an athlete. So it's fun. It's fun.
Last thing, the floor is yours. Sum up your Fordham experience and what you would like to say to the Fordham community.
Oh, my Fordham experience was, and I'm not lying right now, this was probably the best experience that I've had in my life, because it has challenged me so much. It has given me so much opportunity to grow, and I'm still getting so much off of this experience, and I still talk about it a whole lot. It really did have a lot of a great impact on my life. And you know, for young people who start attending Fordham, I would say take every opportunity that you can get, and be courageous and do things that you did not ever think that you could do, because you know, there's always doors open. Try to take a peek into them and see what's behind them, and that's where you're going to have the most fun.
Kerstin Greene, you're an inspiration, and I thank you so much, and wish you and your family nothing but the best in life.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
This production has been aided and abetted by Athletic Director Ed Cull and the indispensable Joe DeBarry, member of the Sports Information Directors Hall of Fame. As the great Ernie Harwell, the Hall of Fame broadcaster, once said, I think I've done all the damage I can do. Please note, no animals, especially rams, were harmed in the production of the Zoomcast, nor any special effects used. And when all is said and done, there's nothing left to say or do. Thanks so much for putting up with me, and we'll see you next time on Ed Randall's Talking Rams.